All right, guys. All right. Hey, welcome everybody. Everybody got a pretty great show today, and co-hosted by our friend extraordinary, wonderful Mr. Ryan Sinwelski, Ryan's Gay Chicago, and we got somebody. Hey, listen, you guys have seen in action. You know him. We know him. I know him very well. Chicago knows him very well, and not just Chicago, but just around the country. Andy's there. He's a Chicago activist. He's a human rights activist, and someone who's been in the trenches for many, many years on the platforms of social justice and human rights and everything in between. So, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Amir and Ryan.
Hey, it was Ryan's beautiful idea, and I was jumping for joy when he mentioned it. So.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Andy. This is awesome, and thank you, Amir, for hosting. Oh, and you know what? That's right. I totally forgot. I'll connect while you start connect this so it goes to my channels.
Yeah, please feel free to do so. And yeah, we're good.
I,
I'm
I
just
tried
gonna
that
do the.
myself and I failed.
Oh yeah, I saw you. We saw you dropping in and out. But you know what though? Hey, that's technology and it's live. So hey, what is it? Ryan would tell you. We go through it, but we get through it. And hey, no worries, right?
Right. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I need
Yes, sir. And this will be a valuable conversation. And so for those who are just joining us, you guys, you know how we do. We're definitely drilling this question about the National Guard and ICE in Chicago and abroad, not just Chicago and abroad. And the question of the hour, we're gonna put it in quotation marks: Are they hurting us or are they helping us? So that's the question of the hour. And I think it's a controversial topic, and you see just a lot of folks coming from all aspects of the spectrum, but just from the standpoint of the leadership and everybody from the leadership to ground level, from the top to the bottom. I think it's kind of not in our DNA. I think Chicago is rejecting it a little bit, but we will talk a little bit more about that. And in the show, and we'll address these questions, and hopefully we can break it down. And I'm sure that between the three of us, we'll end up with some resources that all the folks can take and talk about, and the who's, what's, when's, where's, and how. So, all right. So, you guys, if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and get right into it, and then we'll break it down and jump in and stop me and elaborate, and then we'll share the mic, we'll share the platform. Okay. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So let's start off with. I guess we'll start off with the current aspect of it, and the current aspect of it is, let's start with our leader. So this is our great leader, Mister. Let's move this around a little bit. There we go, Mister J.B. Pritzker, and here's where we're at. So for those who are joining in, this discussion is about the National Guard and militarization of our communities, not just in Chicago, but we are emphasizing Chicago and the surrounding communities. But we're just talking about how fair is it. So, as some of you may or may not know, this is breaking news. The Illinois National Guard has said that they would stand down for now, at least against the Trump administration, from calling an active assembly in Chicago. So the Illinois National Guard leadership said, "Hey, I don't think it's necessary for us to do that," and it's for many, especially the MAGA movement guys, they're going crazy because they feel like it's a direct disobeying of the president's orders. What do you guys think about that? How do we feel about that?
Well, for one thing, unfortunately, we still have the Texas National Guard as well as Border Patrol as well as ICE to worry about. And I would just take issue, Amir, with something you said in terms of this is particularly controversial because Trump is losing support even amongst some of his base over this whole issue of the way he's militarized and sent troops in. As someone who's been, handing out window posters saying, ice out for ice and so forth, they've been going like hotcakes. People in the city, and I think most of the burbs, are overwhelming majority on our side. They may dislike Mayor Johnson, they may dislike Governor Pritzker, but they do not like thugs going down their streets, full military uniform. And they've already killed 2 people, injured many, and they've blatantly violated the most basic constitutional norms. I mean, the South Shore raid, for example, they repelled onto a roof at like 3 a.m. They dragged out, they busted down doors of some, I believe it's 400 residents, and they dragged out kids naked, zip tied elders, stuffed them into moving vans for hours on end. Whatever happened to the Fourth Amendment against illegal search and seizure? Over and over again, they are violating basic constitutional norms. And really, Amir, you and I were talking about this a little bit before the show. When these ICE agents conduct these totally illegal procedures, it becomes a moment of truth for Cook County sheriffs as well as state police. Are they going to arrest these people who are violating Illinois law, violating the Illinois Constitution? Because that's what they're doing, and they're masking up so that they'll be held unaccountable, just like CPD officers of old.
Now, Andy, I have a question for you, because I was reading, just articles and posts here and there, but I know I saw one today or yesterday that said that Chicago CPD or Illinois State Police, that they can't do anything to, like, they can't arrest ICE or anybody federal. But is that true?
That's an open question. I put this to a very senior attorney at the MacArthur Justice Center. They had just held a press conference concerning the fact that ICE was going into and around domestic violence court and housing court and attempting to nab people who were, for example, trying to get extended orders of protection and so forth. And basically putting more victims of domestic violence at greater risk, because if people can't show up in court for this stuff, then the abuse continues. And he said it's an open constitutional question. This is not a slam dunk either way. But I think the attempt needs to be made when you have people like Silverio Villegas Gonzalez being clearly the victim of a felony, if not murder. They shot him into his backside and killed him. And the story that they put out, it was very reminiscent, frankly, of how the CPD talked about Laquan McDonald. They said, oh, he's a threat and all this sort of stuff. And of course, then the videotape comes out and shows that the CPD totally lied. The FOP totally lied. Well, we've got that all over again. But these agents, they're masked. They're hiding their identities for a reason. I had the privilege of going on a few solidarity delegations to Honduras under the dictatorship. And all the cops and all the thugs, private thugs for the big landowners, they were all masked up for the same damn reason, because they don't want to be held accountable. That's why CPD officers during the 1968 convention here covered up their badges and so on. They do not want to be held accountable. And this has been the fact that they have covered up their identities, the CPD. This has been litigated over and over and over again in federal court. This is not something novel that they, are allowed to, that there's some precedent, court precedent someplace that says it's okay for them to hide their identities. Actually, the law goes absolutely the opposite way for, many dozens of cases over the decades.
That's good to know, because I was wondering that too. And isn't that something that everybody on all sides could agree to? I'm thinking, even if you're the most fascist person, don't you at least want to know if you're truly in favor of federal police, being able to kidnap anyone anytime for any reason with no due process, don't you at least want to know who your kidnapper is? I mean, couldn't everybody, even the most fascist person, agree with that? Don't you at least want to know who?
Ryan. The FOP fought this for decades. No, there are people in this society who become police officers, who become ICE officers, because frankly, they're sociopathic. They've got, issues of one sort or another, and they want to be able to lord it over others. Unfortunately, in any big workforce, you're going to have the certain percentage of sociopaths. I don't care what occupation you're talking about. Unfortunately, occupations where you're allowed to lord it over other human beings attract people like that. There's a power imbalance. And then the real problem, and I've said this for years concerning the CPD, the problem isn't the individual John Burge or other sociopaths. The problem are the so-called good cops who look the other way. Robert and his crew in the Ida B. Wells housing project, just blocks away from the CPD headquarters, did this for many, many years. He had a whole crew of people, and the city of Chicago just settled a whole series of over 150, maybe over 200 lawsuits connected just to that officer for $90 million.
Oh, wow.
They thought it was a bargain that they got away with just $90 million bucks. You have got now over 50 homicides, people who were wrongfully convicted of homicide due to Ronaldo Guevara and his colleagues, who've now been exonerated, i.e., at least 50 murderers got away because Ronaldo Guevara decided to quote unquote solve cases through all sorts of illegal means. It's costing the city of Chicago tens of millions of dollars, and we're not even halfway through with that stuff.
Can I say to Andy and Ryan, just for the purposes of transparency, we met over roughly going on about 10 years ago at Home and Square, and to illustrate your point, and that was a nondescript West Side warehouse where the police were detaining people without access to lawyers, family, or booking records, and with accusations of abuse and due process. And I mean, this happened for years. So I mean, this was, and basically even at the point when we were calling it out, I mean, the activists at that point we were calling it a black site.
Right.
And, the practices sparked a public outcry, but we believe, and I don't know, you may disagree, Andy, that those things are still going on today, just to illustrate your point,
I don't doubt it. I mean, I can remember when Snelling was one of the two main candidates for being the superintendent, and I heard all these people saying, "Oh, it's great, he came up through the ranks," and all I could think is that he can't be on any big city police force, especially one is notoriously corrupt down through the decades in Chicago, and not witness one of your fellow officers violating someone's rights. And at that point, you got a moment of truth. Do you report your fellow officer and follow, frankly, Illinois state law in doing so, or do you cover up a felony, which is also a felony? I would not be surprised at all. And I remember hearing a number of attorneys saying it's not just Holman. It's not just Holman Square.
That's right.
You look at out in Broadview right now, and it shares some certain things with Holman Square in terms of it's a facility not designed to hold people. People have repeatedly talked about the deplorable conditions of filth on the floor, people not wanting to sit down on the bare concrete because it's just so disgustingly filthy and held there for days.
So just
no,
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Andy, I wanted to reply. You said that of course, the police would never support, showing their faces, but I guess my question was more is geared just towards the average MAGA citizen, where I'm really watching how, and I'm trying to screen out, knowing that there are lots of paid right wing bot accounts that are not real. But
Right.
people that I actually know or know of, that are MAGA fans, and I'm really trying to wrestle with and like watch others ask them questions, and I'll try to ask questions myself and see how they answer. In other words, to see how far the logic is going to go. To say, okay, so you've come out in support of saying random federal agents can kidnap really anybody, anytime, for any reason, and violate their rights as long as the person's labeled illegal. And I will remind people that in Nazi Germany for many years before the war broke out, all the arrests and the harassment and the camps and everything, those were all legal, 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 not illegal. So, legal is not the same thing as ethical or moral or right. But
as Dr. King and any number of others taught us.
Right. So, but I'm assuming MAGA's already okay, a lot of these MAGA folks, they've already accepted all that. So then I'm just like, but you don't even think that they should show who they are? Like, okay, even if we disagree on the fact that, that they should have the right to take people away, like I don't think I think it's violating their human rights. But yeah, it's just like, it's very interesting to me to see how far are people gonna go with this?
Well, just dissecting the term illegal, I mean, they're abducting U.S. citizens. They're abducting people whose papers are totally in order and attempting to ship them off to other countries before they can get in contact with attorneys. Say, hey, I've got a green card, or I've got a DACA status, or whatever. There's a reason why they're trying to do it in this brusque way and try and hit with a full force, so that pro bono attorneys and so forth are completely overwhelmed by this tidal wave of federal law breaking. And the good thing, and I don't mean to sound Pollyannish about it, because so many people have already suffered so much, I think the tide is turning. I think that so many people, not just in this city, not just in our suburbs, are so pissed off at what this president's doing, and he's clearly showing dementia in any number. If you ever listen to the guy speak, and so even some of he's hurting his own base. These Medicaid cuts are going to hurt his own base immensely, which is why they put it off until after the midterms. But there's other things that tear away hardworking immigrants who do jobs that people with my skin color don't want to do. I did work as a third shift doorman once, though. But the point is that what I try and do on some of these social media platforms, I mean, Nextdoor, which is just an atrocious platform because you have people just spouting off, I quote back to them Cato Institute studies that show that people of my skin color, people born in this country, commit crimes at a far higher rate than quote unquote illegal immigrants, let alone legal immigrants. I quote back to them Cato Institute. And this is Cato Institute was heavily funded, and probably still is, by the Koch brothers. This is no, liberal whatever, institution. This is a pretty damn right-wing institution, and they found, as did any number of other studies, that immigrants, whether documented or undocumented, contribute far more in terms of tax dollars to state and local governments than they ever take back in benefits. And if you just want to look at what a country without immigration looks like, look at Japan. Those of us who are old enough, I mean, you ever see the movie Die Hard? Die Hard, the whole meme is about, the Japanese are taking over. This was, I think circa 1989 or 85, whenever that movie came out. That was everyone. Japan's going to be number one in the economy and so forth. Well, they cut off immigration for decades, and they've basically had zero growth for decades, and have done all sorts of prime pumping, they call it, about in terms of just, let's spend a lot of money and try and juice the economy. And their economy's been dead in the water for the last 3 decades. I mean, it's literally zero effective growth for the most part. It's because they don't have immigration. They don't have the young people doing the jobs while people like me grow gray hair and retire. So if that's the economy that you want, that's what.
And you're not having big families either, and no, it's true. It's very true. Oh, I have a question for both of you guys. Maybe if you here's another thing I've been seeing online a lot. In my understanding, and I've seen some studies like you're talking about the Cato Institute, saying that people that are not documented are working jobs, and very often they're putting in a lot of money, millions, into our Social Security and other benefits that they themselves will never get to use. But then I've seen other people saying, no, that's not true. Don't you see, like someone told me here in Harvey, they were like, oh, well, I met somebody, they came into one of the stores and they were Mexicans, and they had these cards that they said the government gave them. And they had hundreds and hundreds of dollars to spend on the cards. And they were, and people were just talking about, well, they have all these other benefits that they're getting. Why aren't they going to us? Why aren't they going to the Black community? Especially a lot of frustration. But to my understanding, is it true or is it not? I thought that for the most part, you can't use
BS, Ryan.
Right?
I mean, this is called taking anecdotal so-called evidence, and I would even question the veracity of the anecdotal evidence, and putting it up against, frankly, scholars across the political spectrum who found the exact opposite. And the tragedy is that there are opportunists in every community. There's gay opportunists, there's Black opportunists, there's Latinx opportunists. I saw something the other day, someone posted a picture of gays for Trump, and then as part of posting it, they said, yeah, and roaches for roaches for Orkin.
I thought you were going to say roaches for LaRoche.
Careers. You look at there were a handful of people who emerged in the 1980s, basically what I call Negroes against Black people, or homosexuals against faggots. I can say that I'm gay. People who pulled academic and other careers off of trashing their own communities, and every community's got them. There's also people that I call they want to become honorary white people, and we've seen this with waves of immigration where Italians or Irish or name whatever wave of immigration over the last couple of centuries, where they come in, they're heavily discriminated against, but then they think, oh, now I'm a white person, I can trash other people that aren't. And there's some Latinx people like that. As I said, there's opportunists in every community, but now that they are snatching both citizens and non-citizens alike, they're trashing heavily Black neighborhoods like South Shore. I think people are waking up and saying, we can either play this game of divide and conquer, where we're going to blame people who've got it just as bad or maybe even worse or maybe just a little bit better than us for our problems, rather than saying, we live in the richest country in the world. We live in a country that, despite being the richest in the world, we've got 10th rate healthcare, 10th rate housing, education. You go down the list, and other countries far poorer than the United States have got free healthcare. Just go across the border to Canada. You get sick in Canada, even though you're not a Canadian citizen, you'll get treated for free.
Right.
And the reason why we don't have this resources coming to regular folks is that we spend as much on our military as the next 10 military spenders combined, and we give all this tax breaks to these billionaires who are taxed at a lesser rate and pay less taxes often than their own secretaries.
Well,
Can I chime in though before we move on, because I think it's a very important point that you raised, Ryan. As far as the labor contribution of the undocumented workers, according to statistics, we're looking at 8.3 million undocumented immigrants as far as the last census. So, and they contribute very much to the economy. I mean, economically, to the tax base. So, I mean, for us to lock, stock, and barrel ostracize them is really hurting our economy in the long run, and it's nonsensical to say the least. I mean, it's almost like it's almost like a suicide from an economic standpoint. That combined with the tariffs that Andy just mentioned, I mean, if that is the forecast, that means within the next 24 months we are going to be in trouble. We are in for a struggle, and that's just the beginning of it.
Well, and also you just look at the abuses that so-called illegal status allows, and this goes back. You read the history of the labor movement and how they employers use divide and conquer, particularly against immigrants where they didn't have legal status. It's like, oh, you complain about housing conditions like in South Shore. Oh, I'm calling La Migra. You complain about being poorly paid or dangerous working conditions. I'm calling La Migra. You see this over and over again over the decades in U.S. history. This is not something new. This thing that happened down in South Shore where he had a slumlord who was, and this only came out, a few days later, where you had a slumlord who had a building that was in a deplorable condition, and the way he skipped out of housing court was to call in ICE.
Do you mind? Go ahead.
Okay. But I just want to clarify. Can we please all agree and clarify because this is very common, especially in amongst certain Black circles where I'm talking with people, that people are saying over and over again that undocumented people are getting Medicaid, they're getting Medicare, they're getting Social Security, they're getting cards with cash, they're getting free housing, they're getting all sorts of things. I cannot tell you how many times I hear that. So can we all agree that they are not getting those things? Is that something that we could agree on then?
No, they are. Systematically, they are getting those things. I mean, those are when you bring in an undocumented workforce. You just can't have people coming and you don't contribute to their quality of life. I mean, that would be inhumane. I mean, most undocumented migrants who are coming from Central America, Mexico, or South America, they're getting benefits. It's a factor in the reality. And a lot of times they're getting better benefits than the folks who are here. And I think that's where there's a struggle.
That's what I'm hearing. Right. Well, that's what I want to know. Let's sort fact versus fiction. Okay. That's what I know. What are they getting and what are they not? Because we can't really have a good discussion if we don't know the facts. You know what I mean?
Illinois was temporarily giving them Medicaid. Pritzker cut that off, which I think was a huge mistake. I think, rather than playing this race to the bottom where we say, oh, that person's getting a benefit that I want. Everyone should have free health care, not just the very, very poor. And we've got the resources for it. I mean, some of these clowns that live on, Lakeshore Drive or in Streeterville or Kenilworth, we've got the money for this, but they've been ripping us all off. And rather than pile on the people at the very bottom of the heap, that's. I will also say that, frankly, I was super upset with Mayor Johnson about the way he handled the migrants coming in shipped to us courtesy of Governor Abbott of Texas. It came out that the Chicago Archdiocese had volunteered to offer up its closed parish schools, its closed other parish edifices to the city of Chicago for free. But instead, Johnson apparently listened to his advisors or whatever rich people he was talking to, or whatever politically juiced folks he did, and was letting out multi-million-dollar contracts to these firms that had a horrible record of dealing with the city and other entities. I mean, this was not something new. These were awful grifter corporations. And then Pritzker fortunately pulled the plug on them attempting to set up a multi-million-dollar shelter in basically a toxic waste dump.
That's right. That was not too far from us.
That could have been done in terms of the facilities themselves, the archdiocese, which I've had any number of difficulties with over the years, as you probably know, Ryan, from their stance on gays. But to their credit, they did offer up their facilities for free. And instead, the Johnson administration went with these grifter corporations. And what, people rightfully said, well, why are you spending millions of dollars on these migrants, people looking at their local closed school? So I understand where that comes from. But we also have to say there are more than enough resources for everyone. If we were smart, if we wanted to say something about global climate change in this city, we'd make CTA free. And you worry about homelessness on the CTA. Well, I did a study several years ago about various homelessness crises, or unhoused crisis, I guess is the fashionable term now. During the 1950s, during a housing crisis in Hong Kong, they created within just a few years, something like 300,000 units of moderate income housing to deal with a refugee crisis from mainland China. You look at Singapore, for example, which has a government that I'm not thrilled about, but whatever. Something like 70 or 80% of their housing is public housing. And it's racially and ethnically diverse. They purposely mix it up. They don't set up the segregation that, Dad Daley did back in the day, and so many of the problems we're dealing with today. But they have, decent. Most people want to live in public housing in Singapore. The reason why we don't have these things in this town, why they destroyed the CHA, is its competition with private real estate. We all know the crisis of affordability that so many, particularly young people, are dealing with these days. And a lot of it is they destroyed, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of units of public housing that were effectively some level of competition with real estate. And the real estate interests, they say, oh, well, let's defund CHA. Let's make it the incompetent albatross that it is today, because we don't want the competition.
Right.
It goes down to capitalism at the end of the day. So many things. It's like, we've got the resources for housing. We got the resources for free health care for everyone. We could make public transit and inner city transit the way it is in places like Japan, Europe. Still waiting for the high-speed train.
That'd be great.
And we're the richest country in the world.
Well, first we gotta get through this mega mess, and mega MEGA and then mega MAGA. It's a mess.
And thank you for bringing us back to brass tacks, Amir, because I think is many people have suffered horribly already, and more will continue to do so.
Yeah,
I think I can see the tide beginning to turn. I think the orange one has overreached. He's pissed off so many people that aren't like me, fire breathing lefties, that he is in deep trouble on this. People are pissed off. Businesses are pissed off about this. Do you think that, jackbooting troops running around the tourist district downtown is great for tourism? I mean, we already got the Mag Mile businesses crying about, their profits.
And can I chime in before we editorialize a little bit, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Ryan and Andy, I just want to say, the reason why this person that we have is up on the screen is because as the sitting governor of of Illinois, he is not just the sitting governor of Illinois, but let's remember, he's one of the most wealthiest industrialists in the country,
Right.
maybe even in some parts of the world, included being a Pritzker. And the thing is, if anybody has the potential to offset the onslaught of what's going on with this mega mess in the Trump industrialists, it would be this gentleman. And there's not a lot of governors who can claim what Pritzker can claim, the Pritzkers. And as far as the Pritzkers being, home to Illinois, I mean, if you just go downtown, I can tell you several things that the Pritzkers have done, including, institutionalized college campuses. I mean, just so many things that, I mean, they are leading the country right now when it comes to your point, the liberal left. I believe he is. If he's not in the top three, he's got to be in the top 2% of what we need in leadership to offset. I mean, either organically or through attrition, he's there, and this is what time it is right now.
Well, I've always been a big believer that it's movements and not leaders.
Well, the power will always be with the people. But we do need the people. We need the Pritzkers. We need folks who will offset at the higher level from the political standpoint, because we need that as well.
I think you look at the gains that people in this country made in the teeth of the Nixon administration.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was, unabashed racist, anti-Semite, homophobe, sexist, and warmonger. He wanted to nuke North Vietnam. And I've written about this, and people can Google it. What happened in this town in August 1968, the Democratic Convention, was pivotal to the gains that people made in the ensuing handful of years, because people had, they had no illusions in Nixon. This guy was a red baiter, an awful person for decades before that. But they had some illusions in, the so-called anti-war Democrats, whether it was Robert Kennedy or whomever. And when they got their heads beaten in the streets of Chicago and had Hubert Humphrey shoved down their throats,
Mm-hmm.
people made a basic decision. You see this in movement after movement after movement, that people decided, we have to make the change ourselves. It's not fair, but we cannot depend on the politicians of either party. The Black Panther Party in August 1968 didn't even have a chapter in the city of Chicago. By December 1969, a little over a year later, the Black Panther Party was so powerful that they felt on the other side that they had to murder Mark Clark and Fred Hampton. And you see this in Ryan, from the history of the gay movement, probably. There were several rebellions that preceded Stonewall. What made June 1969 Stonewall in Greenwich Village, New York, unique was not that someone threw bricks at cops that were beating up our community and so forth. It's that people organized afterwards. They decided that, in contrast to the homophile movement that preceded it, we need to not rely on the experts, the politicians who we plead to have sympathy to us, or the psychologists and so forth. Gay is good. Black is beautiful. And you see this over and over again. People asserting on their own behalf their self-worth. And it led to, for example, a women's movement that won us Roe v. Wade just a few years later. In terms of the anti-war movement, I'm seeing glimmers right now in terms of our own anti-ICE movement. Some things that I've read about in terms of the anti-war movement. It can be so frustrating dealing with these ICE thugs because they seem to have so much power, and what can I as an individual do? And someone gave me a great analogy. It says that no one person, no small group, no even moderate group of people is going to stop this, but we all got to be sand in the gears. If that means putting up a window poster saying ICE out in your home, getting your neighbors and local businesses to do the same, going to a protest and so forth, people doing nonviolent civil disobedience. You see this over and over again. People in this city are beginning to throw sand into the gears. And I don't think that they're nabbing nearly as many people as they want to, these ICE thugs. And that's why, frankly, I was quite upset, as were many other people, when Pritzker allowed his own Illinois State Police to do crowd control out at Broadview. Because let ICE do its own damn crowd control. Because that means that many more, ICE thugs have to deal with demonstrators rather than going out and kidnapping our neighbors.
Right. No, I agree. And I was going to say, to say that, I mean, I agree with what Amir's saying, and that I would hope that Pritzker would be using his fortune, to be a good influence. Unfortunately, I agree with a lot of what he says about protecting immigrants, but same thing with Mayor Johnson. When you look at the actual rhetoric, I listened to the press conference of the police chief in Chicago yesterday, and then like you said, seeing how the Illinois State Police behaved, and it that doesn't match up to the rhetoric, because I'm like, when I look at it, it looks like they're either helping ICE actively, or at the very least they're neutral, which I would say, if you're neutral, it means you side with the oppressors, right? So it's unfortunate, and I disagree with Pritzker on a lot of things, because he never helps us here in Harvey or anywhere in the Southland with the rampant corruption in the Democratic machine that's destroying our communities. So I get the anger. A lot of people see these same machine people speaking up for the immigrants, and they're like, wait a minute, but you guys are the same ones that have destroyed our communities, especially in the Southland, for decades. And now you're going to say you're going to stand up for immigrants, but you don't. But you steal. Like, our own mayor got together with the MWRD and forced elderly Black residents to sell their homes that they didn't want to sell because they wanted the land. They wanted the land. It's hard because you see both sides of it there, though. So like what Amir's saying is, you would hope those people with those resources would do good things, and sometimes they do. But you can understand the anger, because you also see the massive machine corruption. And so I think, unfortunately, the immigrants end up being the scapegoats, right? In a lot of
in this, you go to a point, Ryan, that we can complain about the horrible unilaterally killing of people just outside of Venezuelan territorial waters, where I think we can fairly confidently say that Trump is making it all up, that these are drug shipments. He doesn't have a damn clue, I'm sure. It just diverts people from the Epstein situation and so forth. But at the same time, unfortunately, Obama had his Tuesday kill meetings, where they decide who they're going to drone bomb that week.
Right. Exactly.
Before that, George Bush, who was doing the same damn thing. So I think the people who in the right makes hay about this, because too many people in our movements give cover to the politicians who talk left but do bad things. I mean, Obama on NAFTA, for example, Hillary on NAFTA, etc. But
Yes.
I just getting back to Governor Pritzker. It's great that he filed these lawsuits. It's great that they're going into federal court on Thursday to hopefully get a temporary restraining order. But something that our friends in About Face Veterans Against the War told me, and I learned from, is that he should be offering sanctuary to National Guards people, whether they're Illinois or Texas or whatever, as well as other personnel who refuse to follow illegal orders.
Oh, I like that. Now that's smart. I'd like to see that.
And at the very least, use his billions, his personal billions, to fund legal defense for these people. Because, and I've said this right on the front lines to some of these ICE thugs, not that they were going to listen to me, but I wanted to plant the idea. I said, do you think that when this comes out in the wash and that people find that this is like totally illegal, do you think he's going to defend you any more than he did his good buddy Rudy Giuliani? He hung him out to dry. He hung everyone out to dry. And you look at the history of people following illegal orders, like at Abu Ghraib in Iraq. It's the people who are right on the front lines following those illegal orders who pay the price, and not the jackasses above who give them. They get rewarded.
I agree.
That sanctuary idea. That's smart.
Yeah. With that being said,
massacre. You know how Colin Powell became head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? He got his start by helping cover up the My Lai massacre in Vietnam. So, here's a black person that we'll promote.
No, I'm totally in agreement with some of it, not everything. But let's do this. I want to editorialize a little bit for people who are just joining, and then I want to go to the video real quick, Andy and Ryan, if you guys don't mind. So if you guys are just joining, what we're talking about is where things stand in the legal battles that are erupting with President Trump's efforts to deploy the federalized National Guard troops to Democratic-led cities. And this prompted not just a series of legal showdowns, but showdowns within the community, showdowns with community members, with activist organizations, even police forces, who are kind of in a crux of it's been this last 2 weeks have been a level of confusion, and it's growing, and it's resounding as we speak. So I want to go ahead and go to a video, and then let's take comments from the community.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, I think we should say hello to our guests and take comments. So good.
This video is the video from the South Shore residents situation, and I think because I think it's very relevant, and it shows that there's an outside influence of what's going on as well. So let's go to that video. ICE on the South Shore of Chicago.
From different agencies raided an apartment building in the city's South Shore neighborhood early this morning. Neighbors there report multiple arrests in this latest immigration enforcement action. People who live there are telling our Sabrina Franza that American citizens were briefly detained. She is live for us on that scene right now. Sabrina.
Marie, inside this building behind me, many of the doors are boarded up after they were broken down during that early morning raid. Now, law enforcement sources tell us that taking American citizens briefly into custody just for their safety is standard protocol, which is what we're hearing happened this morning. Neighbors, though, who were in the middle of all of this say they are shocked to have been treated this way.
They asked me, was I a U.S. citizen? I told them, yeah. I was born here. It was real tight, all right here. And every time I moved, it would hurt.
Patricia Fisher says she was detained by federal agents this morning, claims she was held for hours in a van with other neighbors at 7500 South Shore Drive, while agents confirmed her identity, citizenship, and confirmed she had no active warrants. She describes the scene as she says children were also let out of the building.
no shoes. The kids that had no shirts or no pants on, they just treated us like we were nothing.
He said he had warrants for 5 people. I said, so why are you detaining the whole building? He says for the safety of our people.
Ebony Watson watched and filmed what she saw,
And all you see is this whole block full of budget rental cars.
showing a massive show of force and rental trucks used in this mission alongside ICE, FBI, and other federal agencies. The FBI called it a, quote, targeted immigration enforcement operation. Are they at the property? Because we're here. We tried to find the property manager. No one would meet with us or give us any information about what happened.
It's crazy. It felt like we were under siege last night.
Meantime, this Chicago neighborhood is grappling for answers.
They brought a baby out completely naked and wouldn't allow the mother a chance to clothe her child. You know, it's distressing.
Now, we've reached out to ICE, DHS, as well as to Customs and Border Patrol for more information on what exactly happened this morning, who was detained, and why. We're still waiting to hear back from them. Live in South Shore, Sabrina Franza, CBS News.
All right, that's that. So let's go back to the comments. I'm gonna and then Andy and Ryan, we can go ahead and address that because I know that that's burning a little bit, and we've already mentioned it. So this is hello, French. French was saying, I quit my job in nursing because of free healthcare in Canada. You know, the healthcare debate is an ongoing debate, and you know we definitely have to see after this chaos is over with how we drill down those issues, the issues of how we deal with healthcare, because it's definitely been a long overdue comment or a long overdue issue. You know, especially when, as you guys are saying, and we've already talked about. And Andy, you mentioned it as well. I mean, other countries get free healthcare, and I mean, we have enough in financing and in our federal budget that we can make amends for people to get free healthcare. It's definitely well overdue. So thank you, French, and welcome everybody to the chat. If you're just joining us, please feel free to comment and join in. And you know, hey, your voice matters. So Crook County says it shouldn't take a governor to respond on his campaign for governor than any political candidate ever spent running for president. It should definitely be about the movement. What's your thoughts?
I agree with that.
I mean, you know, the unlimited spending on campaign. I mean, we can talk about Citizens United, and it was horrible before Citizens United, but it's just, you know, you get the best politicians in Supreme Court that money can buy.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that comment, Crook, and you know, definitely a good point. So let's see. Hey, Brian, Wade, Ramona, everybody else in the chat. Again, if you guys are just joining us, we're talking about the issues of ICE and the National Guard being militarized in our cities, especially Chicago. And before we started the show, myself and Ryan and Andy, our special guest, Andy Thayer, human rights activist, we were saying, hey, you know, Chicago has its own DNA, so we'll see how well it works in good old Chi-Town and Windy City, because I think it's not working too well.
Yeah.
Okay. Kurt said,
Ryan, wait, who else? I just want to make sure to get everybody. I thought I saw.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan. Call him out.
Silverback Gorilla. Hey, Silverback.
Hi, Silver.
We said something due to French. Crook, thanks for joining us. Crook, again, I have to give him credit. He did a great job. Crook County put together, and I think I shared it on my channel. I think you tagged me, Crook. But he did a nice compilation of a lot of the recent ICE incidents. So it's about an hour or so of all just compiling a whole bunch of them. So if you want to see them all compiled.
Yeah, let's get to that. Let's get to that. At least if not on this segment, let's get to it because it would be interesting to see. Yes, it's free, but it's managed by Duck. Not sure what that means, French, but maybe you can elaborate. Is it managed by Donald Duck?
Is that a French a canard or something? Like stupid people, probably French.
Yeah, I guess it's a connotation that it's not managed at all, but
They always
I
complain.
don't know. That's
But at
yeah,
least they
we'll
have
see
the
about that.
program, I'd rather have the pro because they do the same thing in France. Like I'd rather at least have the good programs that we don't have, and then be able to complain and say like, hey, let's fix them and make them better. But at least they have them. Like I remember years ago, and this is why I am sympathetic with people that are very like I don't agree with a lot of Chicago Flips Red in as far as the movements to say, hey, let's bring Trump in here, let's bring ICE in here, But I get the frustration though, because I remember in 2008 watching. I was living in Lakeview at the time when, or we had just moved to Lakeview. My ex and I had. We were living in South Loop when Obama had his inauguration. We were actually living right there by Grant Park, and it was beautiful,
Mhm.
magical, and everybody was like, "Oh!" And Oprah was there, and it was like, "He's gonna change the world!" Oh my gosh! And then I remember in 2009 or whatever, but we got this little studio in Lakeview, and we were just both home. I had the TV on, and we were watching. Like the Democrats had everything. They had the presidency. They had control. People were so pissed after the Bush years. And I just remember feeling so crushed seeing no immigration reform, no Medicare for all, no, they had promised, and Obama had promised hope, and we're going to do all these dramatic reforms. Nothing. The Democrats had total control.
Well,
Nothing. So I get it, and that's what I want our viewers to, because I know we don't have any Chicago Flips Red person on here tonight or whatever. But I want to say that because I get the frustration. I'm with you guys. I totally get it. I just don't think that using fascists to fight the corruption in the Democratic Party, especially that we see in Cook County, Illinois, I don't think that's the best way to go at it. You know what I mean? But I think if we don't acknowledge that frustration, then it's very dangerous because then we have missed the anger of the people. It's just unfortunately the immigrants are the latest scapegoat because you notice both sides. If you look at Democrats and Republicans, neither side wants to fix the problem, right? Like you said, Andy,
right.
we still don't have comprehensive immigration reform. We still don't have universal health care.
We
still don't have money for education, but they're very happy to find scapegoats.
Yeah.
Well, and you look at the last time there was immigration reform. Guess who signed the bills? None other than Ronnie Reagan.
I was going to say, wasn't that
legalized a whole bunch of undocumented folks who are here? And our Democrats last summer, what they were pushing was this super right-wing bill, very vindictive, sponsored by this Oklahoma senatorial yahoo, who's to the right of Attila the Hun. And they didn't pass it simply because you had the orange one wanted to take credit for it. So they passed it once the orange one was back in office. But I think we should take a page from history. I brought up Richard Nixon. Did you know that because there was a powerful Black Power movement, he quintupled food stamps? He brought affirmative action out on a national, because the Black Panthers were embarrassing the crap out of him because they were providing the free food, they were providing the free health care and their survival programs, and he launched affirmative action on a national scale that hasn't been seen since. This is a guy who launched the Environmental Protection Act, the Clean Air, Clean Water Act. All this because people were in the streets saying we're fed up with these damn politicians. We demand this stuff. We don't give a shit if it's a bigot in office like Nixon, in this case Trump. We're going to force them to do this. And that's what we got to learn from our history. It's easy to say, well, it's just movements. Well, right now, disgust with both parties is at record highs. Guess what the last time was when that happened? 1968. Everyone hated both parties, and they decided to make the change themselves. And that's what I get very inspired by all the Latinx and other activists who are leading this pushback against ICE right now, because they're showing the way we can save ourselves.
And French, by the way, just to thank you for that comment too. Andy, French was saying it's a two-tier system, public and free. So I guess, if you decide to go with the private, it gives you an extra benefit other than, the public system. So we get it. We get it. Ryan, this is one for you. Thank you. Welcome, Dave. And French, he's giving it to you in French.
Oh,
So,
yeah, he said, Ryan,
Oui, oui.
le gouvernement américain pourrait émettre plus de visas pour travailler aux États-Unis. So basically saying that we could give more work visas, and we can. But remember, that's not the point. The point is to have the corporations make us their slaves. And I made a video about this the other night, and I feel very passionate. And the title of the video, or the live that I did, was "The Most Dangerous Minority in America." And I did it on purpose.
so
Because I did not say, and I wanted everybody to think in their head, right? So the person who hates Jews is like, it's those damn Jews. The person who doesn't like black people is like, it's the blacks. All the black people on the South Side are like, it's those damn Latinos staying at those luxury hotels in South Shore. You know what I mean? So I wanted everybody to think that. And then we went over statistics and we talked about the wealthy people like the Pritzkers, like Bezos, like George Soros, other people. And we said, they have the resources. The goal is to get us to fight each other. So we never get the healthcare, the education, the I was thinking about it today as I was showering. I'm like, what about the Green New Deal? Do you remember that when Bernie first ran for presidency? And I was all excited. People were excited. The Green New Deal. We still need a Green New Deal. Like China's building out. They have so much solar power capacity right now. They have their high-speed trains they've been building. Think how many people that would like in Harvey, we used to be, we were a huge factory town, and we still have manufacturing here, but I mean, we need more jobs. Think of how many people could be employed with the Green New Deal. You know what I mean? But you notice how, like you said, Andy, we've got to change the dialogue. Both sides want us to fight. I'm sorry, the rich, both parties, because really they're both run by the same rich people, and that's what I try to tell people. It's not
different.
Not really
people,
different.
Whatever.
Right? I mean, they're all buddies. They all go to the country club together. You know, they're all like, oh, I'll see you at your daughter's, whatever function at the, so they want us to fight each other so that we don't get the things we need. And that's what I want people to realize, that I get everybody's frustrated, but no matter who you think is the most dangerous minority in America, I maintain that it is the rich. It's the 1%. It's the few that are in power. They have all the resources. So they're happy to see us just shoot each other to death,
I wanted just to address what Ramona's putting in there. What we've seen in D.C. is that this National Guard literally stands around and does nothing except waste tax. And they literally were like cleaning up parks, doing trash.
Really?
Because they're not trained to do crowd control. They're not trained. They don't know any more about arresting so-called wrongdoers than someone who just came off the street. And one of the things that I think is it's important to make a distinction between these ICE thugs and the National Guard, because if the National Guard, Texas is already here, I understand, we need to be taking a very different tack towards them versus the ICE thugs. ICE thugs, they sign up because they want to be bully boys. They're trying to recruit from the dregs of the CPD right now. You've seen the commercial. Okay. National Guards people, these are working class folks who decided, oh, I want to help my community, like say if there's flooding, fill sandbags. I need some extra money for school. The Midwest chapter head of Iraq, used to be called Iraq Veterans Against the War, and he was deployed to Iraq a couple of times. But he, Aaron Hughes, he is a National Guard vet. He signed up for the Guard because it was just the year after the massive Mississippi River flooding. He wanted to help his neighbors. Okay, these are regular, so-called weekend warriors. They do a weekend or two a month, and the rest of the time they're working jobs just like the rest of us. So they really are from the community, and we should have conversations with them, because I will bet you 10 to 1, most of them don't want to be patrolling our streets. Hey, Texas National Guard, you're welcome to come back when you're out of uniform and see our beautiful city, but you're being used right now.
Right.
Game that doesn't help anyone. And by the way, the estimates, and I think they're lowball estimates, is that they were wasting $1 million a day on the Guard. You know, this is money that could be housing the homeless. This is money that could be giving us the health care we've just been talking about. And by the way, guess who fills out so many of those low-level nursing and orderly jobs in hospitals? Guess who fills so many occupations within our nursing homes? You ever visited one of your elderly friends or relatives? You've got probably at least 50% immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing the jobs, wiping people's. My late friend Chris Giovannis had a term for people who wanted to get rid of immigrants in this country. She would say, "Who the hell do you think is me wiping their butt in the nursing home?" You know, as they spend the last of their golden years. The fact is
but
that
Andy, we have to be angry at those people.
American agriculture would collapse without immigrant labor.
But Andy, we have to be angry at those people, because if we are and stand in solidarity with them, and we see that the rich are raping us, and they want us all to be their corporate slaves, we might rise up. We might actually hang out and figure out we have more in common with the undocumented immigrant who lives in our neighborhood or who lives in Chicago than we do with Jeff Bezos, and buying into this fake American dream that I'm just a temporarily inconvenienced millionaire. One of these days, I'm going to win the lottery, and I'm going to be a millionaire, even a billionaire, just like Jeff Bezos. So that's why I defend rich people, even though they don't care anything about me. I mean, you know what I mean? We've got to change how we think. Who are you going to have solidarity with? A rich person who, honest to God, could not care less. If they would kill you if it meant that they could get a few wrinkles removed. You know what I mean? Or someone that the rich corporate media is telling you is so, is a dirty gangbanger from some Venezuelan gang, and therefore, needs to be taken off the streets. But if you actually talk to them, they're more than likely probably just someone who came here from a country that we ourselves have tried to destroy. We have a huge empire.
Oh yeah, through sanctions, installing dictators, invading.
Right. And
climate change. There's been a huge multi-year drought in Central America, which I think it can reasonably be connected to the fact that the global climate change brought on by all these fossil fuel usage.
Right.
And also the various so-called free trade agreements, which means that heavily subsidized U.S. agriculture floods the rural areas of Mexico and rest of Central America, wipes out the subsistence farming. Those people are forced to migrate to the cities where there's no jobs, and then they head El Norte. Who can blame them? Who can blame the many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people doing the same thing, fleeing sub-Saharan Africa, where global climate change has made the Sahel unlivable for many former pastoralists, and they're heading to Europe. And you put Europe and the United States together in terms of villains in the whole climate change debacle. Well, hello, you're talking the two centers of the great industrial revolution started in the 18th century.
And what Ryan and Andy have said, going back to the question about the National Guard, one of the things that we do have to remind is we are also in the middle of a government shutdown. So, there's questions about the funding for these troops since they are federalized now. So, the Texas National Guard arrived at Great Lakes this afternoon. And basically, there's nothing for them to do except for crowd control ahead of any specific assignments, according to sources. So, it's just a cluster like none other. And I mean, I definitely want to go to this part and we can go ahead and talk about this as well. And I want to know how you guys feel about this, also in the chat, also Andy and Ryan, today Mayor Johnson signed the ICE-free zone executive order, which creates a clear mechanism to prohibit federal agents from ICE from using city-owned property in their ongoing operations in Chicago. The order is supposed to expand and give protection to locals in the community to provide citywide effort to safeguard our communities. I mean, and according to Johnson, he's saying we will not tolerate ICE violating our residents' constitutional rights. Nowhere we allow the federal government to disregard our local authority. So ICE agents are detaining elected officials, tear gassing protests. And you know about that because you were in the middle of it, down in Broadview. In Chicago, police officers have been gassed as of yesterday, 2 days ago, in abusing Chicago residents, as we saw in the video. So, according to Johnson, we will not stand for this. And with this executive order, he stands firm in preventing or protecting the constitutional rights of our citizens. What do you guys think?
Well, you know where the rubber hits the road? It's when one of these ICE thugs refuses to leave city property. Is the CPD going to arrest them? Are they going to detain them? Well, this is an open legal question. I had a conversation. I think we were talking about it before the show, Amir. I had a conversation with a senior attorney at the MacArthur Justice Center, and it's an open legal question. What happens when local officials attempt to enforce state law, or in this case, an executive order? I will tell you that ICE was hanging out at the L stations that were contiguous to this past June's Gay Pride March. And some of us were calling, hey, Mayor Johnson, you should not be allowing ICE on CTA property any more than they should be allowed on CPS property.
Right.
That only CPS property was out of bounds. But we're gonna have a situation here, and who knows which way it goes, because these ICE thugs have repeatedly violated Illinois state law. It's like when you've got a cop at the CPD who witnessed one of his or her fellow officers violating the law. You know what they usually do? They go along to get along. They become corrupt themselves as a result. So I'm glad the executive order is there, but we have yet to see the rubber hit the road.
Yeah. And as you very well know, or maybe you don't know, or maybe the folks don't know, but we probably should clarify, it seems like the contrast with the Chicago chief of police was a little bit different. And he was saying, hey, we're not going to, we're going to allow the federal agents to do their job. And, we're not going to question that or even get involved. So it almost seems like it's two different narratives coming from the chief of police and the mayor. So like you said, I mean, theoretics mean one thing, but the actual reality of it and the enforcement is a whole nother situation altogether.
And this isn't the first time that conflict has come out. In the run-up to the DNC, every single group that applied for a permit was rejected by the city. And guess who is at the head of that whole process? It's none other than Snelling. And we kept on calling out the mayor and say, hey, not only should you be granting permits without forcing groups like my own to go to federal court to get what is a constitutional right, the right to protest in your own town. But also, why are all these Proud Boys on the CPD ranks? That was a campaign promise, Mr. Mayor. And you let Snelling do what Snelling wants to do. He lets the CPD be the CPD. And, who's the mayor of this town? Is it Snelling or is it you? Mayor Johnson.
That's what I was going to ask you, especially because you cover Chicago politics a lot, Andy. Is that when I watched that press conference? Yeah, to me it seemed like he was the chief totally ignored what the mayor, all the mayor's public statements. Is he afraid of cracking down on the police? Is he afraid to use his authority? Because it doesn't seem to me like a lot like Mayor Daley, even Emmanuel, other mayors. I don't think they've been afraid to do that. So why is he? Why is he allowing them to do what they want to do?
I think most mayors have been afraid to do anything about the CPD, and that's why they avoid doing anything about the CPD. I don't think he's the first, but he's coming at the issue with very different rhetoric than his predecessors. And I know that there's different groups in the city who unfortunately give the mayor a pass on this, and they shouldn't. I mean, you just look like hypocrites. If the politician you support is doing the wrong thing, you need to say, "This is wrong, Mr. Mayor. You're betraying your own supporters by doing this." And I think that's how the left in this town and nationally loses a lot of credibility. Don't defend the undefensible. Say, Mr. Mayor, you really should have responded to the migrant crisis in a way that wouldn't allow the other side to pit Black people against Latinx people and vice versa. You know, you should be saying that you're going to do something about. I mean, we're the wrongful conviction capital of North America. We've had more wrongful convictions where the courts have found that, that the city has wrongfully detained mainly Black and Latinx men for decades.
Mostly involving police brutality, especially from the John Burke era and beyond. But go ahead.
I have a late friend whose son was, you know, there was all sorts of evidence pointing to his innocence. The victim said that there was one assailant. They managed to convict 3 people for the same damn crime. And I saw her going through these year after year of endless court battles. You're up on a felony. I don't know if either of you had the pleasure the way I have. You're going to be going to dozens of court dates, assuming you can make bail. And I mean, that was back when there was cash bail. And you know, the disruption to your work life, the disruption to your family life, and everyone around you is immense. And that's if you get found not guilty, the way fortunately I've had the good fortune to have come my way. So, you know, you allow this police misconduct to fester, it destroys whole communities.
It does. It does. And now we're at a time where we do need, I mean, and I want to just air my disagreement. I mean, you know, and this is the time of confusion and people are all over the board. But what I was saying about Pritzker and the leadership and even some of the local mayors, and I think I want to show a video and then get the comments and then we can come back. The last video is the Broadview mayor, Andy and Ryan, and how she handled the situation. And I know that we talked about, you know, it's been a cluster of different emotions, but I think that she handled it. I think the mayor and the chief of police in Broadview, because of what they're dealing with, I think that they had to take action. So I think, and even in Mayor Johnson's standpoint, I think he has to take the action that he's taking. If not, you know, we know Chicago, especially in some of these rougher urban areas, you know, it's going to lead to violence, you know, and I just see it happening, you know. And I forgot the historical, and, you know, for me not to, you know, I shouldn't even try to quote it, but there's been historical movements that have started. I mean, what about the military violence that happened on a college campus? I believe it was in the late 60s, maybe 1960s.
Jackson State.
The Jackson State issue, right? I mean, you know, we would see something similar to that if, you know, and we still can see it, you know, and I think that that's what the leadership is trying to avoid because, you know, we know Chicago, we know the DNA of it. But before we even drill that down and, you know, just for the remainder of the time that we have together, guys, I just want to show that how Broadview was actually handling it. And it's like a 2-minute segment. So if we can watch that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Let's
Where village officials sent a strong message to the feds this week. They do not want ICE operating its detention center in their town.
Now the Broadview police chief says ICE agents are draining the resources of his department and the community by making false 911 calls. And what you are about to see is one of them. Our Dave Savini investigates.
Yeah. You are watching as Broadview police respond to a 911 call, claiming someone was tampering with a gate at the ICE detention facility there. Body camera footage obtained by the CBS News Chicago investigators shows several Broadview police officers respond to an alleged Homeland Security threat. The gate in question is where ICE takes detained immigrants for processing.
What's up, guys?
Hey, what's up?
Not much.
How are you?
Good. We got a call of subjects trying to climb over the fence or something.
No, not since we've been here.
But when police arrive, all they find is two people and a camera. Our CBS photographer filming the exterior of the building with a CBS security guard by his side.
Okay, you guys didn't tamper with any of the...
No, man.
The 911 call claiming someone was tampering with the gate came from an ICE agent. According to this incident report, an ICE agent called police for help.
But he can't go and try to force his way into that door.
Okay, so the guy in the blue?
No, the guy's just recording. Camera.
Do you believe that was a false call?
I do.
Again, it was just our CBS photographer filming the exterior of the building.
In your mind, bogus.
Yes. It's disturbing. It's ridiculous.
Broadview Police Chief Thomas Mills says this is just one of several questionable 911 calls his police department has received from ICE at this facility recently. Listen as responding officers also question the validity of the 911 call.
It sure doesn't look like anybody's forcing anything in any fence over here.
The deployment of tear gas, pepper spray, mace, and rubber bullets by ICE near the processing center in the village of Broadview is creating a dangerous situation for the community.
This same detention center has become the site of at least 3 other incidents involving federal agents who are accused of hitting people with cars, shooting projectiles, and using chemical agents on journalists, including a CBS reporter last Sunday.
I immediately felt it burning. I started throwing up, was able to drive a little bit, and then I had to park.
Asal Razai, our reporter, driving her car with a window open and to be struck like that? What do you feel about that?
It's horrific.
He's demanding ICE turn over the names of all federal officers involved in each incident and says he's ready to take ICE to court.
Are we going to look at maybe reaching out to Cook County State's for subpoenas?
As easy as that. The chief also says he's now reviewing all 911 calls made from the facility.
It's actually a violation of law. It's disorderly. It would be classified as disorderly conduct, filing a false official report.
The Broadview police chief says the Department of Homeland Security tells him they will cooperate with his criminal investigations, but he said they wouldn't say to what extent. In the newsroom, Dave Savini, CBS News Chicago investigators.
ICE.
So what do you guys think? What do you guys think?
Well, I've sent a couple of emails and made a phone call, left a voicemail with Mayor Thompson. And I kept quiet about it except for a few close friends until now because she hasn't taken the action that I had advocated. ICE has clearly violated any number of municipal ordinances. And here we got the false 911 calls, the fence erected in a way that is a danger to area businesses that need to have access to fire and ambulance services if need be. And ICE has basically thumbed their nose. We're the feds. We can do what the F we want. Well, guess what? You know, this is part of those grains of sand that we can all be laying. The Broadview Municipal Water Department, and I looked them up on the web, they do exist, should cut off water to that facility. They violate municipal law. Is this going to stop ICE? No, but it's going to make it more difficult. It's going to be one more grain of sand that those of us who are opposing ICE and its unconstitutional, unlawful actions can take. So, Mayor Thompson, I've sent you a couple of emails about this. I've left a voicemail with your assistant. Please turn off the Broadview municipal water supply to 1930. What's the name of the street again? Forgetting the name of It's 1930 something or other.
It's
but
like somewhere by 25th Avenue, I believe.
It's north of 20. Yeah, it's by 25th. Anyway, the point of the matter is that there are actions that are perfectly legal that Mayor Thompson can take. And if anyone watching this broadcast wants to put another, whisper in her ear about it, Mayor Thompson, you're fully within your rights to cut off the water supply to a serial lawbreaker such as you're finding there in your town. And understand, this is a town of, I believe it's less than 8,000 people. So it's not like they've got bazillion, resources. And we're not talking 8,000 people in Kenilworth. We're talking about working class folks. So not a huge tax base. And they're wasting all these municipal resources. Let ICE do its own crowd control. Don't force your own cops, et cetera, to do it.
And what about the environmental issues of, Andy, you were out there and, on the ground out there. And I mean, I don't know if were you tear gassed when you were out
I
there?
was not directly tear gassed. I've just got really minor asthma. But when I went out there one morning, I just started hacking and you can hear in some of my videos, there's this bozo who keeps on just like coughing out a lung. That's me, because this tear gas, or whatever you want to call it, it's not just gas. It's mainly particulate matter. So whenever the wind comes up, or people, it wasn't windy that day, it's just people walking out on the ground, it stirs it up, it gets into your lungs, and you've got local residents, you've got local workers, there's factories right around there, there's a residential area just one short block to the east.
To the east of it, yeah.
And one short block to the west. Those people are dealing with this damn tear gas. And they've got kids. There's undoubtedly people with asthma, both elders as well as young people. This is not healthy. And they're just throwing this around like anything. We saw it here in Chicago. And that, and I'm glad you brought up that picture there, Amir, because this whole nonsense of putting a boat on the Chicago River and visiting these famous, Chicago landmarks. Here you got the Art Institute in the background.
Yeah, they're right off of. Yeah.
People, it's about theater. They brought out high-def cameras to film, and you watch their video. It's got music to it. It's got music to it. This is not about protecting people. This is about crafting a narrative of intimidation, of we're the boss here, we're big men, all this macho bullshit, pardon my French. And it's such a waste of money. These goons here are on the screen right here. Just think what the kind of money they're making that could be spent, again, on our healthcare, on our schools, on our public transportation, you name it. This is what we're spending. And this is just a microcosm what the United States military is around the world. That said, they can be defeated. Those who've done a close history of the U.S. war on Vietnam, you know how that war ended? It ended because people in uniform on the United States side decided they were no longer going to fight.
So they started standing down against it and protest.
Well, they organized. And they basically committed capital offenses.
Yeah.
Mutiny.
Treason. Mutiny. Yeah.
Civilian movement comes in. Is that people are not going to take that kind of risk unless they feel like the country's behind them. And people who are doing all these, the rating the draft boards and all this sort of stuff that was going around at the same time sent the message to people in uniform who were risking far more than civilians were with their actions that, hey, regular working class folks in this country have got our back and we're not going to die for empire. That's how the Vietnam War, the war in Vietnam, how the obviously it was the efforts of the Vietnamese themselves. Also, but it was the crumbling of the U.S. armed forces, not just in Vietnam, not just stateside, but right around the world. There were GI newspapers, GI organizing. And that's when we talk about regular working class people in uniform, such as your National Guard, such as your Army, your Marines, and so forth, that they've got families at home. And we got to try and reach them. Now, hardened ICE thugs are a totally different matter. They join up with that outfit because they want to push people around. A lot of them, I think, are sociopaths. You look at the way they're treated.
No, I agree. And they say some of them, at least some of them, are potential January 6th rioters.
Oh yeah, I'm sure a lot of them are veterans of that.
Well, and there's stipends going on with ICE. I mean, if they're arresting people in quotas. So, we are not yet in the midst of a constitutional crisis, but, we are getting to that point. So, and I do want to say the other part about this particular graphic is, to your point, I think you hit on it a little bit, Andy, but I think that, going in the business district, right off the Magnificent Mile and tourist areas, and how much crime can be going on, so if you're seeing DHS, and even in some of these areas, I mean, this is not what they were mandated to do. So I mean, I don't even think they're doing a quarter of what they said the mandate was when they were originally activated to go into these cities. So my thing is that, you are seeing the pushback from the governors. Governor Tina Kotek of Oregon wrote to the U.S. Northern Command asking them to return the 200 Oregon National Guard soldiers to her control so she could send them home. The federal government has kept the Oregon soldiers, or were keeping them at a training camp in Portland suburbs while awaiting the federal appeals court ruling on their deployment. And the courts have to be clear in this. And I do have a little bit of hope for the courts, at least the appellate courts, not the Supreme Court, that, they can be and they can really help remedy this situation in a lot of ways. And the soldiers should go home to their jobs and their families. And we need to see that.
Well, and just bringing up the courts, it was the Nixon-Pack Supreme Court, all-male Supreme Court that gave us Roe v. Wade. Was it because they suddenly say, oh, Hosanna, I guess women deserve to be able to control their own bodies? No. There was a massive women's movement. People were militantly demanding their rights. And that's what shifted the court. And this is how we won equal marriage rights in this country. I can remember campaigning for equal marriage rights. We started in the year 2001, and we had literally single digits in our favor polls-wise. By the way, that was also, of course, the year of 9/11 and then the Afghanistan invasion. And I and other anti-war activists were opposing the impending invasion of Afghanistan. Again, single digits supported our side in the polls. And, voila, through organizing and people's personal experiences, both those polls flipped such that a majority of Americans, even a majority of Republicans, supported equal marriage. Now, that's probably shifted back some with the current right-wing onslaught. But the fact is that we can organize and change public opinion. The problem with politicians, they're so busy chasing the votes that they want to be popular all the time. So Obama was, as a state senator, was in favor of equal marriage rights. And then when he was on the campaign trail, at the same time, I might add that the anti-gay Proposition 8 was going on, he said that his so-called religious values dictated he had to be against equal marriage rights. And then when the polls flipped a few years later, then Hosanna, he saw the light again. So the leadership is not going to come out of our politicians, even the most well-meaning ones, frankly. That's not their role in our society. The role of radicals is to raise the unpopular issues, to campaign about them, and hopefully win a majority of people in this country to our positions that ICE sucks, that we shouldn't have federal troops in our streets, etc. And that's how we force the politicians and the courts to move.
And I'm glad you shared that, Andy, because that shows the unique perspective that you have, that others do run for may run for office, or they may be activists that cover a lot of government stuff like I do. I know Amir does that too. But I think you have a unique perspective that I've seen, where you're very focused outside of electoral politics to keep the pressure on, like you said, like the vanguard, keeping the pressure on and pushing the envelope and the awareness on the issues for the general population, and by that, hoping to change things via that direction. So I think that's something very unique that you bring.
I mean, I can remember with the Palestine issue for decades, fighting within the anti-war movement, that Palestine and the United States support of Israeli apartheid needs to be part of this movement. And that wasn't even talking about the general U.S. public. Now you look at what the polls are now. In Germany, for example, which has had a horrible record of repressing Palestinian activists, even worse here than here in this country. Now, majorities in every single party, except for the quasi-fascist AfD, support Palestine over Israel. The politicians aren't there yet, but the vast majority of the German population, aside from the neo-fascists, is. And it's been the struggle of Palestinians themselves, and people seeing the news clips, and activists forcing the issue here when people would rather just have us be quiet about it. Activism is not a popularity contest, except for you do want your issue to become popular, but you've got to risk unpopularity. You've got to risk sometimes blacklisting, the way that a number of these Palestinian and pro-Palestinian students have, in order to win the battle, because they're going to try and shut you up by any means necessary. We've seen it with the purging of academics. We've seen it with the attempted deportation of pro-Palestinian foreign-born students, etc. I mean,
and you see it too. Not to interrupt you, Andy, but you see it now with the weaponizing of the courts, especially like you see it with James Comey was one that surprised me, and then there's not really a solidified indictment, and it's starting to dissipate and fall apart as we speak. Or, now Pam Bundy is actually, she was supposed to go after Letitia James, and, now we're seeing there's talk of Jack, what's Jack's last name? Help me. Jack, the investigator who investigated the Trump January 6th. Jack.
Are you thinking of the California congressperson?
No. The Jack. I'll pull his name up.
Okay.
But let's do this. I just for purposes of time, and Ryan, if you agree or not, but I want to get some comments, and then we can
Yes. You know what? And we just got Status Quo came in. Now Status Quo is often very supportive of our anti-corruption work that I do a lot of. That's usually my big focus, and then Amir has been extremely helpful in that as well within the past year. But Status Quo came in, and I think it's nice to get a little different view. So Status is supportive of the National Guard. So I like to hear from the different views, and maybe we could get Andy's response. Like, how would he respond to?
This is we can take Status's quote from, and then we'll go back and we'll get the rest of the quote. The rest of the comments. But Status says, from my vantage point, living in California, we've been living with these miscreants. For years in the streets. It's quite obvious to me that the National Guard is here to help Chicago. So yeah, you're right. So Status is a proponent of the National Guard being there. And you take it.
I gotta interrupt here for a second. You know what cities have got the worst violence rates? It's red states, cities. Okay, so don't red states that have got red mayors.
And very, very few of the states who actually wanted the National Guard. I mean, I think DC actually participated, and they're saying that there's a benefit. Well, if they want it, and there's no pushback, and there's not, that's on them. But we definitely do believe that this is propaganda at its greatest. Putting the National Guard.
The mayor wanted it. It's another thing. I think most people in DC, certainly with the benefit of experience, don't want it.
Right, but like
they want to be able to control their own city. That's something they've been fighting decades for.
But like Amir said, though, this is what my question would be for status quo and other MAGA supporters, or I don't know if you're MAGA supporter status, but and I say it respectfully though, but like if people are so enamored of ICE and the National Guard and think that this is the right strategy for helping our cities, why don't they volunteer their extremely red cities? Why don't we hear people actually asking Trump publicly to send them to their cities? Why are they demanding to send them to cities where they're not wanted? I think that's a very, very valid question, and it's a respectful one. I'm not saying that disrespectfully, but I mean, have you guys heard anybody saying, "Hey, send the National Guard to Baton Rouge or Shreveport"?
Tennessee did.
What about
Tennessee
the shootings in Alabama or Mississippi? What about the shootings that just happened? So where are the Republicans there? The mass shooting that just went on.
Yeah.
Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
We know.
Has anybody from that state or those cities have they asked for the? We know they're very, very red. Had they asked for federal involvement?
Well, the Guard is not equipped. The thing that's laughable about this is you literally have got National Guard who are cleaning parks in D.C. because they're not trained for murder investigations, etc.
Right. Oh no, I don't disagree with you, Andy. I'm just saying.
I know.
I haven't heard it. And I'm wondering why. But why? So why would people? Again, respectfully, I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. But if you, thank you, Status. See, that's why I appreciate Status.
We're gonna get back to that. But let me say this: Crook in what he's saying. It's political theater. And unfortunately, not enough of the country and not enough of the population wants these things to happen. So, we have to go with the consensus. If the consensus wanted this shift, it wouldn't be a lot of the confusion that we're seeing. You wouldn't get the backlash, or you wouldn't get you wouldn't be getting the discontent of it. So, I mean, unfortunately, if it was done in sincerity, then it would be a whole another thing. I mean, hell, Andy, you can say it. We know that at least 10 years ago there was a point on the south side and the west side of Chicago when children were being murdered through gun violence. Hell, we wanted the National Guard. Hey, let's get the National Guard. So I mean, there are points in junctures where it's needed. But unfortunately, this is being done when you have the ICE and the National Guard. Well, actually, it's not even National Guard. It's ICE up and down the Chicago River. What is that going to cost?
Well, it's what they're going to catch. Undocumented people, boating with their yachts. I mean, please. This is really, really bad political theater. And I can understand the desperation that many under siege communities where violence seems to be like so horrible, and you watch the evening news and it's the daily drumbeat of people being hurt. And you got to say, well, what causes people to flip out? What causes people to join gangs? What causes people to... When you have a disinvested community, that's when you have these spikes in violent crime. I did a study using something called the Gini Index several years ago. And you found that the biggest correlation between communal violence was between the so-called Gini Index, that is the level of inequality within a given society. So the United States, much more unequal than, say, Western Europe and Canada. We much higher violence rate. But then you compare to Brazil or South Africa, where the inequality is even more grotesque than here, you have even higher levels of violence. The murder rate is really the gold standard, because that's the most easily documented. But this was several years ago, and it had no correlation to the level of policing in society. In fact, and these statistics are admittedly, they go back to like 2016, I believe, that according to the FBI Uniform Crime Report, of all of the 650 cities with more than 50,000 people in their population, Chicago had the third highest cop per capita population. It had the highest ratio of police officers to civilians. And yet our violence rate was far worse than a lot of other cities like New York and LA. And so this whole idea of we're got to just flood our city with officers, whether it's...
I'm sorry, Andy, you're talking about the time frame about 10 years ago. That's the time frame you were talking. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's when I did the study. Okay. And I was comparing our cop per capita ratio. And it was all derived from the FBI Uniform Crime Statistics. And I just ground their numbers. And we had the third highest cop per capita ratio of any city over 50,000 people in the United States. Number one was DC, and number two, I believe, was Baltimore. We were number three. Okay. And yet our violence rate, far worse than New York, far worse than a lot of other cities. Now, mind you, at the same time, our violence rate was far less than places like St. Louis, Detroit, Philadelphia. This whole idea that Chicago was a huge outlier before the murder rate began going down. It was an outlier compared to some other big cities, but we were sort of in the middle in terms of our violence rate. So I raised that because it was in the middle of an election for mayor. Karen Lewis was running, and unfortunately she mimicked the same line that we'd heard out of so many politicians running for mayor over the decades. I've heard it every single election year. I'm going to hire more cops. I'm going to hire more cops. I'm going to hire more cops. And that's a plethora of police officers by the time, of our most recent elections. And there was no one looking at, well, what is the correlation between more police officers and rates of violence?
Right. I would also say, what's our return on the investment? So for as much money we spend on police, what are we getting?
Well, if I recall correctly, between salary and benefits, your starting police officer costs the city $140K. A unit of low-income housing, I believe, was something in the range of like $250K. These stats are again, I should say, are old, but I think, to his credit, what Mayor Johnson has done, what Harold Washington attempted to do, was decrease the gross inequalities in our city services. But we've got so much farther to go. But the fact that we've got the lowest murder rate that our city has seen in 60 years, I think says something about we need to have more trauma-informed responses, where if someone's having a mental health crisis, well, first, let's take a look at what the roots of mental health crisis crises often are, and that's instability in the home due to lack of jobs or not making enough money. People doubled up in housing. We've got a housing crisis in this city where most of our homeless folks are doubled up. And that's a recipe for domestic violence right there.
Right.
And so
lack of health care.
We've so many young people especially are living right on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And people, when they don't have resources, some of them will flip out.
And unfortunately, we're going to get to the rest of the comments, and then we'll do final comments. But I will say this, and Andy and Ryan, let's not forget the high level of police brutality payouts that Chicago has paid out 249 million. 249 million in misconduct between 2010, 2014, and 107 million in 2024. So, I mean, unfortunately, our policing apparatus is in the red if you're talking about budget because of that alone. So, we have to be able to look at that for what it is. And by the way, Andy, Status says he totally disagrees with what you said earlier. So you got a debate going.
Actually, my articles are reasonably...
Give Status credit.
Look them up. I'm not going to come and tell you something else.
Hey, you guys can debate. We'll schedule a debate. But listen, Andy, I'm gonna.
Guys, give Status.
Go ahead, Ryan. Ryan.
Give credit because you guys totally. I tried to bring it up before, but you totally talked over me and you forgot. This is huge. Now I'm assuming Status. I don't know if you're a MAGA. Exactly, but when I brought up the point again, this is why we have to engage with people and try to be reasonable and fair. Because he said, Ryan, you have a good point there. When I said, well, are people from red cities, are they asking for ICE and the National Guard to come? So see, if a MAGA supporter can acknowledge that that's a good point, and then Status had another comment admitting that it is somewhat theater. So if Status, if someone conservative can see that, you see what I mean? That is a victory. That means that we're having dialogue. That some people are able to use logic. Not everyone is able to. Jedediah Brown, one of our big enemies. Like, he's not logical. Yeah. Mayor Clark, he's not logical. Trump, he's not logical. Some people you can't. But that is key. We have to celebrate that. I need to call that out. We have people that we may agree with on everything. Status. Ryan, you have a good point. I haven't heard anybody from cities in the South that have high crime. They're not inviting ICE or the National Guard. That's good.
No, we answered that though. We did answer that. We said that it is, but not to the level.
Right, but Status is. We want to celebrate when people from a different perspective acknowledge. You know what I mean? And they say, when they're saying like, "Oh yeah, you guys have a point," like that's huge. Because I know there are plenty of men that I've never heard them say that in years. So, I mean, I think that's
we're for fair. We're for fairness and everybody's voice to the table. But again, and you can correct me if you can agree to disagree, and I'm not saying, but we have to get to the point now because the level of confusion when people's rights, civil liberties, and constitutional rights are more than normally, because it's already been a problem even before now, they're being abused, then, the debate, there has to be a level of action. And, we can talk theoretics all day long, but it's not going to stop ICE from terrorizing the community and going into these cities. We need something more, Here's what Conscious said. Welcome, Conscious, by the way. What are innocent people supposed to do when their leaders do nothing?
Well, if we wait for the leaders to do something, then we'll wait till the cows come home. Is my personal position that even the best politicians are not going to do something that actually helps most people, as opposed to people who really run the society in terms of the people who make the mega campaign donations and so forth. The three of us here don't have those kind of financial resources, and I'm assuming that you, Conscious, and probably most people are in the same position. But again, I look at history. Went to school for history. I've been an amateur historian ever since.
Right.
And it's movements that change our society. The fact that we got Social Security was due to massive struggles of unions and others in the 1930s. The Great New Deal programs were not a result of a very patrician-rich, shall I say, J.B. Pritzker type President Roosevelt having kind feelings towards the vast majority of people. Actually, there were 3 general strikes in this country in 1934 in Toledo, San Francisco, and the Twin Cities. And that was just people were in the midst of the greatest financial crisis the world has ever seen. People were occupying the workplaces, and basically not just President Roosevelt, but also a super right-wing conservative U.S. Supreme Court basically decided they had to get with a program because people in this country were mobilized. We saw some of the same thing in the late 60s and early 70s. And a lot of mistakes were made on our side, don't get me wrong, but people learned from things like getting their heads bashed in during the 1968 convention. They learned that they had to make the change themselves. It's not fair. Most people, as my late mom used to say, they just want to be left alone. They don't want to be bothered. They just want to get on with their lives, support their families or friends and so forth. But when things get so bad, people just got to realize we got to make the change ourselves. We are successful in this country.
We do. Well, what you can do, Andy, since we're at 2 hours here, and we'll probably stay on a little bit long. If you want to go ahead and do your final comments, and then after that, tell people how they can get a hold of you, that would be great. And that way we can wrap.
Yeah. Well, I'm on Facebook. You can message me there. I think it's Andy.Thayer1 on Facebook. I do read my messages. I do try and respond to them. One of the campaigns that we're having right now, and if I could run to the other room, give me 5 seconds.
Okay, no problem.
5 seconds. Here it is. Didn't even have to run to the other room. We've got these ice out signs. I think you're seeing.
Can you turn it?
I can't.
Oh yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's reading. It's out.
And we're asking people to put these window signs in their homes, in their businesses, go around your neighborhoods, get your neighbors to put them up, because one of the legacies, unfortunately, of the height of the pandemic is people are so atomized. They're not connecting with their neighbors, not connecting necessarily with their coworkers. We need to send a message to our undocumented or just immigrant or just brown or black neighbors that we're going to stand with them. And this is a very easy visual way to do that. You can Facebook message me and I'll see about getting you some.
Mm-hmm. Say your Facebook one more time, and then if you have any final comments.
Andy.Thayer1 on Facebook. Just search for me there. And again, this is a sign going to stop ICE? No. Is any number of, we were all Hercules here. Could we stop ICE? No. What it is putting grains of sand in the gears of ICE and this whole repressive apparatus that's trying to promote authoritarianism in our country. We can stop it. We stopped McCarthy era. We stopped the U.S. war on Vietnam. We stopped Richard Nixon. Fortunately, we are not in fascism right now. Anyone who's done any serious history of fascism knows that, fortunately, we can have a conversation here. If we were in fascism, we'd be all in the clink right now. And everyone, whether they're right-wing, moderate, or left-wing, who's commentating right now would not be allowed to do so. So we can use our constitutional rights that were fought and died for, whether you're talking about the civil rights movement, the labor movement, we can use these rights to stop this president, to stop the quislings he depends on, and actually build a very different kind of society.
And And guys, just so you guys know, Andy is a very important activist. I mean, I've known for 10 years. Ryan invited him, and he is someone, I mean, he's had, you didn't even talk about your fight with the FBI in the past, Andy, and, just some of the things that I know about you and, just your human rights activism. So, and so I want you guys, and he's Googleable. So, you guys, if you guys, here's his wiki, and, you can learn more about Andy and his work. And I mean, reach out to him because he's sincere. He's definitely a fighter. He's definitely a fighter. So,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Thank
You're
you for coming on. I'm so glad you did. And I'm glad that we ended up doing all this together because I like having a good panel. We should do more of this. Good discussion. Very good discussion.
Well, it certainly beats the 30-second clip on the evening news, so I really appreciate it.
Right.
Well, yeah.
We need the context,
Well,
and
we'll go back and we'll share it. We'll share it, and I'm sure it'll be viewed multiple times, even by folks. So we'll make sure and we'll add your information as well. So we appreciate you.
Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you again, Andy.
Thanks, Andy. Everyone in the comments says thanks, Andy. So definitely talk to you soon. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Take care now. All right. Bye-bye. All right, guys. So you heard it here. What do you think?
Amir for agreeing to have us on, because initially I was just gonna have Andy on my show tonight. Then I was talking to Amir, and then I was like, hey, let's do this. This could be a great opportunity to have a discussion, and it was great. I'm so glad. We should do more of that. I love it.
Well, yeah. Well, here's my thing. The part that we didn't get to, and we really had intended to, but for the folks who are joining us, who know about the local struggles, I do want to address this thing about Clark and some of the things, just right down to the local Harvey issue with ICE. Clark said in the meeting, you were there, that there's nothing that we can really do about ICE. And, if they came today, what would we do? And, to the point to where he was illustrating that we wouldn't be able to do anything. But I think that that's the wrong message to send, to the community. And as we had discussed even earlier, this is coming from a person who is, he's absent in every other way. So at a time when you can show leadership, you're not showing leadership. And to Conscious point, when you're seeing the leaders, now you guys, if you are a politician, you can stand up and make a difference and let your voice be heard. Now is the time. And I think you said something about Ryan, even folks in the community who aspire to be leaders will go out and lead. You don't need anybody to, give you a golden platform with, in diamond engraved stairs to do what you have to do. Go out and start helping. You can go out and fight ICE. You can go out and object against them. You can follow their trucks around and show people that, they're violating and start screaming at them. You can do those things. It doesn't take mechanism to do that. I mean, it might not be advisory in a lot of times, but I mean, these people are violating civil rights like none other. So, civil liberties like none other. So we got to be able to, really look at the leadership and say, hey, what are you doing right now? This is where it's counting, So, and that's why I had to bring up Pritzker. I bring up Pritzker and Brandon Johnson because they've got a lot of flack and pushback in a lot of other areas. But I do see some proactivity to whereas I don't see it coming from other governors. I'll yield.
At least the from Johnson and Pritzker, the words are there. That's good. I mean, now I'm hoping that the actions as far as what the police do will continue. Will actually back up the words. But yeah, I mean, for instance, we definitely would never see the governor of Indiana helping, But that's why I think at that point, and I'm so glad that Status actually agreed with us and that whoever brought that up first, I think that makes that was such a great point about the more red cities. Like, for instance, why aren't they? If an area that's dominated by Republicans, and assuming that the Republicans agree with with MAGA Republicans, because that's a wholly different part of the party, right? But like, for instance, why wouldn't they beg for them to come to, I don't know, some city in Indiana that they think has crime? And probably not Gary, because that's mostly Democrat. But you know, but still, you know, isn't it interesting how you don't hear that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you don't see it. You don't see it in the level you think. I honestly, like I said, I thought Tennessee was one that called for the National Guard, and they went to Tennessee. But you haven't heard anything about that, right? The National Guard were there. You haven't heard anything about it. So I mean, again, it's political theater.
it's a show, right? It's a show to try to be like, haha, gotcha.
Well,
Really intimidation, I think, because remember Trump did he and the MAGA Republicans were playing the intimidation game with Texas and the redistricting and everything. So I think it's a part of that, right? Where it's saying, hey, we want to dominate, you know, through illegal and nefarious means. We want to dominate politics, and we'll do it any way we can. And by the way, here's another way we're going to try to intimidate you. We're going to send unwanted federal troops into your city. Which, by the way, I have to point out again, Amir, because we cannot let people get away with this. Republicans in general, but especially a lot of MAGA, if they truly look at what a lot of people say they believe, the people that are making blogs and videos and whatever, they say there's states' rights. If you're such a states' rights person, why would you ever celebrate? Why would you ever wish, even upon your enemy, why would you ever wish federal troops to come to a state against the wishes of the state? Do you remember? I mean, this has been ever since the Civil War, and before the Civil War, this was a huge thing for conservatives, where they're like, states' rights, states' rights, states' rights, states' rights. But this is violating states' rights. So again, like you said, it's not even about. This is violating even conservative tenets, because it's not about actually trying to do what's right. It's about trying to screw over your political enemy.
Well, Andy, by the way, Andy said, Crook said he knows Andy for about 8 years, followed us. And thank you, Crook. You know, you're always, you know, you and Ryan get together. You guys do great work. So you're always welcome. Conscious said, I appreciate this dialogue. And Conscious, we appreciate the work that you're doing. Ryan, you know, I believe that, you know, the end has to justify the means. And if the end doesn't justify the means, then we're going to look at this point in history 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, and we're going to be like, what was that really about? And it's going to show, you know, what actually is the outcome of this. And again, it's political theater. Now, here's my thing, and I'm going to say this, and a lot of people are going to get upset with me. If the National Guard were going into some of these areas in Chicago where, you know, gang shootouts are prevalent, so on and so forth, or so on the west side or the south side. So if you were making a show of force there and you were trying to prevent crime happening there, then I would be like, hey, you know, I would be for it, you know. But, you know, again, we're not seeing that. When we're seeing ICE and the National Guard, well, not so much the National Guard because they just got here, but if we're seeing ICE go up and down the Chicago River, you know, on a sunny afternoon, you know, what the hell is that all about? You know
Michigan Avenue, like that, the photo that
I mean, yeah, you're going down Michigan Avenue, and you know, I'm sure you guys are probably getting free food. I'm sure they're getting free food and everything.
It's like tourism, you know, on our dollars. Like, I remember reading the article where it said they gave the figures that it was costing to have the federal troops in DC, like, per day. And then they gave the figure of how much it would cost to house all the homeless in DC. And it only took a few days of having federal authorities, you know, on the streets in DC to go way beyond the cost of actually building housing for all, not just some, all the homeless in DC. So that's where it just blows my mind, where I'm like, wait, didn't you guys on the right say you're the party of fiscal conservatism? Yeah. Didn't you say you want smaller government? Didn't you say you want to save money?
And for me, you know, the bigger picture is that, again, you know, think about it like this. This is the way we got to think about it. You know, these children got to get up and go to school at 9 a.m., 8 a.m., you know, every weekday. And, you know, do we really want them to to go out and see a militarized force of, armed soldiers who, and what would they be there for, and it just sends a bad resounding message, So my thing to you and the people who are watching again, does the end justify the means? So I do want to say to Ryan, and I do want to say this, and I don't want to give anybody a platform, but I just want to take this back to Harvey because we this is a very important conversation, and I don't want to get it mixed up with and watered down or dwindled down with what's going on with shenanigans. But here's my thing: if the officials on the ground, so we talked about this op and how he was threatening some of the immigrants, and now he's calling, he's sending so different, many mixed messages, and you know what I'm talking about. But at one point, he was calling for ICE to be in the community, and then he was calling for some more things. Well, it doesn't really matter what he has to say, but it's dangerous to the point to whereas when he's backed by a city leader, a sitting mayor who is giving him an open platform to, not even just to dialogue, but to do whatever, that's when it becomes dangerous. So the thing that, he's saying and he's doing, even with the population of Hassan's employees, is it just has to stop, and I believe that it has stopped. But we want to be able to continue to call a lot of these city officials out, especially in Harvey and places like that, because there's mayors out there who are standing up for the people. I mean, like the mayor of Broadview and the police chief of Broadview. We don't see that same action in Harvey, Illinois. We wish we would for once. It would be a welcome change. Or the mayor of I believe it was Waukegan. I don't know if you saw that, to where as a young lady was being harassed. She was a young Hispanic young lady, and they literally pulled over her car because she had the Mexican flag on her hood, and she was an American citizen, but they literally arrested her. So the mayor came and he took her car and said, "Hey, he really addressed the ICE officials," and that was as of yesterday. So they had no reason to hold her, but they literally took her and arrested her for no good reason whatsoever. They had no reason. These are the kind of things that we're seeing, and this is what we have to call out and stand against. So, to the Clarks of the world and the Jedediahs of the world, if you're not part of the resolution, you're part of the problem.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And how can I still can't get over the last city council meeting, the mayor just saying, just be quiet. Okay, so we should just be quiet. Why don't you give back all the tax money that we spend on your brand new SUV that you get driven around in, and on your driver, and on your 24/7 security, and on the cars that sit in front of the houses that we're told you don't even live in? And isn't it so interesting how he doesn't want to do anything, but if it's something for him and for his people, why are we paying $30,000 for a gospel concert? You know what I mean? It's always about, if it's something that they want, then they consider it something that, And the crazy thing is, to just let your people know you stand in solidarity with them because you're their elected leader. How much does that cost, Amir?
Nothing. I mean, you should be doing that anyway. As a rule, rather than the exception, you should be doing it.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing it, but to sit in the city council and make a statement, if the feds come in here today, what are we going to do? Well, you are the city mayor. You're supposed to protect your population. There should be a game plan in place. It's not, if they come in today, what are we going to do? It's ludicrous, to say the best. And status, I will say this, they are there to protect federal property solely. But, unfortunately, that's not just what's happening. So, I got videos. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ryan.
And no, you're right. Human rights violations happening, but also, again, is that let's try to approach conservatives from their standards and say, okay, if you are the people of fiscal conservatism, saving money, is that really the best use of our money to send in
Yeah.
extremely expensive federal troops to guard buildings. Like we already have forces set up to do that, because when you use the National Guard, that means that there is an emergency. There's a huge flood, there's an earthquake, there's something. This is no emergency, as you said. This is just a political stunt.
Yeah, it's political theater, and it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna end up well for Donald Trump. And if they have gotten legitimate criminals out of the country, that's a good thing. I don't think that that's a bad thing, because I'm for that. But unfortunately, they're not even. I mean, what are the numbers? All we see is flashes of, these people were gone, and these people are in Honduras or Ecuador or somewhere like that, and they're in prison camps. So how do we know? How do we know? And Crook was saying he saw them sail from downtown Chicago to Ravenswood, North Chicago, the ICE guys. They probably were like, eating hors d'oeuvres and eating, just drinking, Dom Perignon. You just don't know,
Right.
man.
And remember, again, because I'm not really usually talking to necessarily leftists, right? Because they probably already agree. So I'm talking to conservatives, and I'm saying you're the party, you're the people who say we want small government, we want to limit what we're doing with our taxes. So we're paying people overtime to go on vacation in Chicago on our time, to provide security, like you said, Namir. Now, if they were going to Austin and befriending people, and and standing in the corners and making sure that everybody stayed safe, maybe people wouldn't be so against it. But
Or Inglewood, let them go to Inglewood. You feel me?
But right? But exactly. But we don't see him there. So it's like, well, then why would we want you in our city? Like, why should we pay you, primo tax dollars, like, to basically be tourists in Chicago? Like, just get out of here.
Hey, Ramona said none of them care. Yeah, well, we know that to be a fact, Ramona. Crook said Mary Clark has a Tiffany Hinyard.
Yeah, he corrected.
Who's Mary? Who's Mary Clark? Is that his wife? He don't have a wife. Who's Mary?
Go up like 2 comments. He corrected it. He corrected his spellings.
Oh, okay. I got you. Ryan, this is Ramona talking to you. Ryan, they don't care about residents in South Shore. Oh, we know that. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I got you. Mayor Clark has, yeah. It's definitely contagious. Ryan, you got this one? Lazaro Enriquez?
Is this? I don't know what that is. Is this
You might want to, Lazaro. You might have to rephrase that, because we want to answer it, but just rephrase it and put it back in the comments. We appreciate you though.
Yeah, I just don't understand.
Fishing for catfish. Yeah, I mean, no, they weren't fishing for catfish. They were probably eating free food, eating hors d'oeuvres. They were probably going into the restaurants, getting free, all you can eat. It's just crazy. So let's see what else.
There are better ways that we can use our tax dollars.
Yeah, especially in the middle of a government shutdown. Now, how that cluster works is just just like you just scratch your head. I'm scratching my head. So I think
point. Because remember, I'm always trying to make points. If I'm sharing, I'm not trying to convince people that already agree with me. I'm usually trying to make a persuasive argument for a conservative or for somebody that disagrees. So that's why I always say, hey, I'm holding you to what you said. You told everybody that you are someone who stands for fiscal conservatism, that you want us to be very careful with how we spend our tax dollars. How is this a good use of spending tax dollars? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you hold them to what they say they stand for.
Yep. And by the way, Ryan, I'm gonna put your YouTube in the link just for everyone who's gonna watch this. I think that's very important. So let me put that in the link and show that. And that's Let me do a better version of it.
Oh, that was like the search. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the search one. But I will say, Ryan, I think we should probably do final comments. And guys, this is not just my show. This is myself and Ryan co-hosting this segment together. So Ryan, feel free to edit the comment and make sure that you put your when you go back on your YouTube. And this is Ryan's YouTube page, Ryan's Gay Chicago. Listen, I think that if you want, we could do final comments. It's up to you. It's up to you.
Yeah,
What do
thank
you
for agreeing to do this together tonight. Because, like I said, originally I was just gonna have Andy on my show, but this is good. I hope we can do some more. And thanks to Conscious and for Status and for others. Like I said, I'm glad. I'm always glad to have people join that may have different opinions, because it's really important that we talk these things through and that we show people that in a democracy, this is how we behave. We're other. That doesn't mean that we can't take strong stances. And I'm not saying that we're gonna just put up with anything. But I'm just saying, like we had discussions tonight. No one was threatening to kill anyone or anything. You know what I mean? Like this is awesome. Like this is what democracy is all about, having these great discussions. So Silverback Gorilla came again.
Crazy. Ramona, Crook, Status Quo, Conscious. I saw Dave in the chat earlier. Let me see. I just want to make sure we get everybody. Let's see. Brian Wade, Ramona, if I didn't say you, and if I forgot anybody, listen, we hate to forget people. That's why we try to call you guys out. But I will say, just from my standpoint, we are in a particularly delicate time in America, and I think that 10 years from now, we'll be looking back at this time and we'll say, hey, what did you do in that time? What did you do in that time of crisis? Or maybe you'll be talking to your grandkids and you'll say, hey, what did you do? And we want to be able to have a response that is not only reasonable but feasible, to say, hey, we talked about it, we discussed it, we called the public together, we did this, we did that. If you can't say those things, then maybe you should think about saying those things. Maybe you should think about engaging. Don't sit back. I think, Ryan, you said it earlier. A neutron is just as bad as somebody who's an op. If you're on the fence and, if you're a neutron, maybe inactivity is not the best answer. And some people can't do anything but try to show support. And if you can do that, then show support. But let's talk about it. Let's share the information. Let's discuss it. If that is all you can do, then let's do it. For the folks who can get out on the front lines like the Andy Thayers of the world to protest, let's get down to the protest. Let's go down to downtown. Let's show people that we can make a difference. Certain things that we can do, we have to do, because now the time and the urgency requires it. Crook said we need the people to push the GOP to swear her in so we can get these Epstein files released. You know what? Even if the Epstein files were released, I appreciate that, Crook. Even if the Epstein, unfortunately, with this particular president of the United States, for many of us, I believe he's the worst president in United States history. Who's literally tearing our country apart, and he's one of the reasons why our state and our cities are in the peril that they're in. So we can't forget that. So we have to keep pushing. We have to keep banding together. And we have to show these people what democracy looks like, and it doesn't look like what they're doing now, and Status and the folks of the world like that, not to call you out, but I'm all in agreement for protecting the community, but it has to be done in sincerity. It has to be done where there is a need. It has to be done when we are, when you see kids getting shot on the south side of Chicago. Well, yeah, we need some in Mastro's. Yeah, we need some, or whatever the state. And I should be ashamed of myself, Ryan, but the last thing is the state where you saw the last active shooter, and you almost see a live shooter incident at least once a month somewhere. We need to get enforcement out there. and maybe as a show of force, you just don't know how these things are being viewed and who's being activated. Some of the craziest people in the world are being activated right now to do a lot of crazy things. So just dignity has to be put there. Accountability has to be the rule of order. And, I agree with your last comments, with dignity, respect, and under the color of law, crook. You said it. You said it. You got the last comment, and I agree. That's the way that it has to be done. And let's hold these leaders accountable because, this is what they're there for. We don't want a blanket response. If they came today, there's nothing that we can do. Well, there's always a way to escalate. There's never not a way to escalate a problem, especially if it's your community. If you are paid as a leader in that community, don't ever say there's nothing that you can do. That is the wrong answer.
Right. And I think no matter who you support politically, can we all agree that if you don't support human rights for everyone being treated with basic decency and respect, if you don't support human rights for everyone, including those accused of committing crimes, then your own human rights are in danger. Because if once we decide that this group of these criminals or this group of people with this color skin or who speak this language or whatever it might be, that it's okay to violate their rights, once that's okay, there's nothing to stop our authorities from violating anyone else's rights. I mean, I would hope that no matter where you sit on the political spectrum, I would hope that everyone could agree with that. That I truly just would like to see everybody come together to say, let's respect everybody's human rights.
Yeah.
Can we make it that easy?
If I were,
hopefully.
that is. I'm sorry. You said that so well. Let's let that be the last comment because that was wonderful. I appreciate you, Ryan. Great comment. Great comment from everybody in the chat. And just know we are not slowing down on Harvey, and we're not slowing down on Clark. So keep watching our live streams because we are definitely hot on their asses. Right?
Yes. City council meeting, I think, is next Monday. Is it? Wait, let me. I'll take a look. Let me look again. It is, although it's also scheduled on Columbus Day, so I don't know. Clark may cancel at the last minute. Well, so stay tuned. We'll keep everybody posted.
Ryan wants me to come down and address one of the meetings, and I've been a little bit hesitant to go into Harvey only because I just don't trust him. I don't trust the police or Clark, but there's no fear. So that's one thing. But we definitely need to keep the accountability going. So that would be the reason why I would come down,
Well, you're welcome anytime because we stand up for your human rights to share what, to speak your mind.
Yeah. And hey, higher ground, if you're just joining us, catch us on the review, but thank you for joining us, and it's good to see you and everybody else. And listen, Ramona, don't worry about it. We gonna face these guys down, and we're gonna continue turning. We're turning the page now, so I appreciate everybody just continuously supporting, sharing the information, and let's just keep fighting these oppressive forces. That's all I gotta say.
Amen to that. Yes. Good. And until the next chat.
All right, guys. We appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good one now. Thanks for joining in, Higher. All right, take care.